Well, I'm glad to be here, and seems like this is a yearly trek for me to come to Long Beach. The one year I got myself in the middle of the parade that took place down by the Queen Mary one year, and that was always interesting, and so I felt led that was not my group of people, so I decided I'd stay out of that. Y'all must be... Are you warm? You can go ahead and fan. That's fine. That's fine. If you take your wig off and set it to the side, you'd be much cooler up there. So anyways. And the porch is okay tonight? Okay, they're all asleep. So anyways, but I'm glad to be here. And I was asked to do my birth order, my take on the birth order. So I'm just going to get it done. Are you ready? How many are the oldest? Would you raise your hand? You're the oldest in your family. You knew it was coming. Are you ready? You just raised, nothing to be ashamed of. Are you the oldest? Are you ready? You want my take on the oldest child? They're bossy. They're bossy, and they think they know it all, and they think they can boss everybody around. How many would agree with that? If you're the oldest, there you go. There you go. They think they own everything. And by the way, it doesn't get any better because the older you get, they still think they can boss you around. My sister is 50, I am 49, and she still thinks Mama left her in charge. Mama did not mean it when she left you in charge. So the oldest one, they're bossy. How many are the youngest one? How many are the youngest one in the family? You're spoiled brats. How many, I spoke the truth right then. You're spoiled brats. You get anything you want. Mom and Dad got tired of whooping all the older kids and got to you, and they left you alone. And you know, because you could be on the other end of the house, and if you go, Mom, she's not going to ask you, are you hungry? She's not going to ask you, do you need something? You know what she's going to automatically say? Put him down. We didn't even do anything. The youngest ones are thumb-sucking, spoiled brats is what they are. How many would agree with that because you have somebody younger? So if the older is bossy and the younger is spoiled, do you know who the perfect people are? The perfect people is everyone in the middle. How many are middle children? We are the perfect ones. We are the anointed generation. That's what we are. We are the ones that calm down the oldest one and say, look, you're too full of yourself. And we're the ones that look at the younger ones and say, grow up. We are the mature ones. By the way, if you marry an older one, the first question you ask when you go to get married, are you older or younger? Because you don't want them, I promise you that. Go to Judges chapter 2 if you don't mind. Judges chapter number 2. How many are worn out? How many are tired? Okay, how many if I brought pizza in here, it would help you listen better to the preaching? Okay. How many if you brought Starbucks in here, it'll help you listen better? Okay. How many are Dunkin' Donuts people? Okay, we got to settle this. Brother Johnson is not an In-N-Out kind of guy. Are you a Five Guys guy? Okay, so let's get this settled. How many are for Five Guys? Five Guys are better than In-N-Out. All right, how many In-N-Out is better than any? You know, I'm going to tell you right now, I've had In-N-Out. I've had Big Five? Five Guys. And I'll tell you what, how many have ever been to Texas and had what they call a Whataburger? Anybody like that? Right? That beats everything. Amen. Judges chapter 2. Are you a Whataburger guy? Are you really? You understand what we're saying? Okay, good. You're saved. And so, you know how it is. All the younger ones, they eat what? Five Guys or In-N-Out. It's the burger for the spoiled people. Is that what it is? So anyways, here we go. Y'all look like your makeup's running with the heat. It is. It's running. Your eyebrows are falling. So if you'll pick them back up. So just kidding. It's your eyelashes. All right, so Judges chapter 2. Let's all stand if you don't mind. And thank you, Brother Johnson. And that was excellent. In fact, that apple made me hungry. But you had doing this number, and I'm not going to eat it. So anyways, Judges chapter 2 and verse number 10. And let's read it together out loud. Are you ready? Judges chapter number 2. And we'll read it together out loud. Ready? Begin. And also all that In verse number 6, you're going to find out that Joshua let the people go. In verse 6, they went to inherit and possess the land. In verse number 7, that the people continued to serve the Lord all the days of Joshua, then all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua. And then in verse number 8, you're going to find out that Joshua, the son of Nun, died. So he's dead, lived 110 years old. And then in verse number 10, probably the saddest phrase in the entire Bible, in my estimation, and you'll understand it after we're done talking about it, is that phrase right there. There arose another generation after them. And think about this, young person, which knew not the Lord. And let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, we ask for your blessings now upon tonight. And Lord, what a great sermon. And I wonder how many young people recognize tonight that they're in that moment. And it's time to get out of that moment. And God, I ask that you come down and work through the tiredness, work through a little bit of the heat going on. And God, may the young people that are here to hear from you, that God, they'll do just that. Thank you for Brother Johnson. Thank you for this opportunity. And God, help us now as we are your mouthpiece for these couple of days. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You may be seated. As I said at the very beginning, this is a very sad phrase to me. There arose a generation that knew not the Lord. If you'll just listen to me, I promise you, like Brother Johnson, I won't be long because the truth will speak for itself. I could understand if you met a generation of the Capones, the crime boss from Chicago. I could understand if you met somebody from that family. In Italy, Texas, there is a monument erected to Dr. Jack Hiles, and my father and I were down there, and we were shooting a video years ago. And after he passed away, about a year after that, they put a monument up, and we went down there. And we were standing there in the little town of Italy, Texas. And while we were there, we decided we'd go get something to drink. So we went to a little shop. Gentleman was standing there, and we started witnessing to the gentleman. And my father said, do you know Christ as your Savior? His name was John. And John said, no. He said, do you go to church anywhere? He goes, no, I don't. He said, my family are not church-going people, and we haven't been for generations. My father led John to the Lord, and when my dad went to write John's last name down, his last name was Dillinger. My father stopped and said, like, the gangster Dillinger? And he was joking, and he said, yeah, that's my relative. Now, I can understand a Dillinger generations to come not knowing the Lord. I could understand Hitler's generations not knowing the Lord. But young people, do you have any idea what we just read? We just read that somebody with the children of God, the children of Israel, that all of a sudden there was a generation bearing their name that knew not the Lord. Now that's sad to me. You have no excuse for to live any other way than the way that your mom and dad have put you here tonight to live. There arose a generation that they didn't even know the Lord, and if you look at, they didn't even know the works of the Lord. To me, that's craziness. I'm going to ask you tonight, teenager, to step out into the highway, and I'm going to ask you to grow up a little bit tonight. And if somebody next to you wants to sleep, let them sleep. And if somebody next to you wants to goof off, let them goof off. But if you're here tonight, teenager, and you care anything about the generations to come, then I want you to step out in the highway, and I want you to look down the road. The number one word that Brother Johnson used tonight, that's the bridge for my sermon, is the word influence. Right now, inside your body are children. Right now, inside your body are children. I know this is not biology class and there's a proper time and place, but you need to understand this. If you are going to get married, and that's the proper place to have children, is inside marriage, but you've got to come to grips with this. You are walking around with children on the inside of you. Not only that, you are walking around with grandchildren on the inside of you. Now that doesn't mean much to you because you have not experienced love. When I fell in love with my wife, I thought I was in love. But when I had children, my love went deeper. I didn't think I could love that way. I mean, when that baby was first born and Deanna was put into my arms, I didn't think I could love that deeply. This is going to be a very selfish thing I'm going to say, but I told the Lord, Lord, I don't think I have enough love to go to another girl. I mean, I'm holding this baby girl in my hand, in my arm, and I'm sitting there, I'm just overwhelmed. I saw y'all's daughter there in the room in there, and my mind went back to 25 plus years to where my daughter was the bows and the patent leather shoes and the socks coming up over the shoes. I know that doesn't mean much to you, but to every parent they're like, oh yeah. I mean, to get married and to have your first kiss at the altar, that's like a Shazam factor. But then for a baby to be born and it's a girl, I told the Lord, don't give us another girl because I can't love her. I'll give her away. I've already got enough love for this one daughter. We had the second child, and it was a special needs son. And my special needs son is 26 years old. After we had that son, I was like, God, I don't want any more sons that are special needs because I don't think I could love anybody else like this. Then God gave us a third child, and whatever normal is, Jordan's not it. Jordan gets married in October, and I'm going to tell you right now, all of a sudden, think about what God did for me. God gave me a woman called a wife. That's always a good thing to call your wife a woman. Come on now. Don't walk up and never mind. And then God gave me a daughter. God gave me a special child to love. And God gave me a young man that I could play ball with. I am living the American dream. But then something wonderful happened. My daughter gets married, and I'm thinking to myself, I hate him. Let me tell you, all son-in-laws need to die. You know, I was sitting there telling my daughter, I said, you're going to stay with me forever, right? And she looks at me and says, yes, I'm staying with you forever. But that one day, that one dark day that fell on the Gray household, when I wrapped her in my arms as I did every night I was home when I wasn't out speaking, and I would say, I love you, and you're going to stay with Dad the rest of your life. Up until this dark Judas day, she would always say, yes, Dad, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. And I said, that's my girl. But this day I hugged her and I whispered in her ear, her head's this way. And I'm like, I love you and you're going to stay with Dad forever. And there was this pause. And it was like, what? And whenever you say this word, well, no. That's a deep subject for a shallow mind. Let's not go to well. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, Dad, I don't know how to tell you this, but one day I'm going to have to leave. And I said, oh, no, you don't understand. Y'all, but the moment, y'all, listen to this, the moment we had grandchildren, with a wife I didn't know I could love, with children, I didn't know I could love that deep. But y'all, listen to me. With grandchildren, now you don't understand it because you don't have any. But with you better not. But with grandchildren, guess what? It's a goofy kind of love. Y'all, it's a kind of love that makes you do things you normally would not do. I have 3 grandchildren, and they call me Grandbob, and I love being a grandfather. The other night, I was talking to this guy in the office, and I got to be careful because we are live right now, aren't we? And anyways, so I was talking to this guy in the office, and he's got these deep problems, and so we're talking, and I'm like, yes. All of a sudden, through the walls, I heard the grandchildren's voice. Grandbob. I think my daughter's doing this on purpose. And I'm going, all of a sudden, I don't care about your problems. Sir, in my mind, I'm thinking, grow up. You're 48 years old, get a life. I didn't think that way until the grandchildren. And then all of a sudden it was like, so Blake, our oldest grandson, goes Grand Bob. He can get that out. Our middle grandson, Grayson, he puts it all together. It's going Grimbob, Grimbob. But the little one, my little granddaughter, she looks like she's from Whoville. The hair sticks up like this, and all she can say is bop bop. I know that doesn't mean much to you. Bop, bop. Jack, that's cool. I'm a bop, bop. Now, see, that doesn't mean much to you because you don't have grandchildren. But all of a sudden, the voices disappeared. At that point, I looked at the man and said, we're done. I don't care what your problem is. If you just go drink, I don't care. And so I got up and walked out my back door, my glass door. I'm standing between the church building and the gymnasium like they're gone. So I go around the side of the building, and there they are. Y'all, the sun was setting. The sun wasn't back. They were just nothing but shadows. And I came around the side corner, and I said, Blake. All of a sudden, the music started. Everything slowed down. The children turned. I turned. And all of a sudden, they went, Grand Bob, bop, bop. And here they came running across the parking lot. And there I broke into a run. And I acted as if I scored the winning goal in soccer. I slid to my knees across the parking lot, ripped off my suit coat, and I said, come to Grand Bob. And they come running up. And I know you're looking at me like you have lost your mind. That's what grandchildren do to you. I'm going to ask you tonight to make a commitment to your children and your grandchildren that you will keep God alive to influence them, that they will know your God. You see, the only influence I have is over my children and over my grandchildren. I will not have influence over my great-grandchildren. Now, please listen to me because we're headed someplace. I will not have influence over my great-grandchildren. When my great-grandchildren are born, I will be the old man they go to visit in a nursing home that I don't get around, and I just sit in a recliner and I stare straight ahead. That'll be me. They'll just simply say, I don't get why we have to go once a summer, make a pilgrimage to Longview, Texas, to go see this old man. I know he's my great-grandfather, and they will make them sit down and go through photo albums like you have gone through photo albums, and they will say, well, I know he was your grandfather, but he was your father, but it has nothing to do with me. I only have 2 generations to be an influence on. God has not given you the responsibility for every generation to come in your family. God, teenagers, have given you the responsibility for the children yet to call you father, and for the children yet to call you mother, and for the children yet to call you grandfather, and for the children yet to call you grandmother, and you have a responsibility. You listen to me. It is not your right to choose for your children and your grandchildren know God. That's not your right. Now, they may choose no God, but you give them a choice. Don't let them make the choice in ignorance. Let them make the choice stepping over a godly grandfather and stepping over a godly parent. If they're going to walk out the back door and go drink it up and smoke it up and thug it up, then you let them do it, stepping over your faith. But don't you dare kick God out of your life, because the end result is this: your kids die and go to hell. You don't even understand it. Your grandchildren die and go to hell. Because if you don't keep God in your life, and you don't keep God number one in your life, then you will marry a heathen, you will raise children not in church, your grandchildren won't go to church, and like he said, you will escape the bullet, but your children, your grandchildren won't. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father, me, my son, he's getting married, and he will have children. That'll be 6 generations. Let me tell you about my great-grandfather. My great-grandfather, when he was 13, went to a camp meeting, and God called him to preach. When God called him to preach, he surrendered, but he didn't go through it. He ran from God. Long story short, one morning he woke up sitting at the table, wrote out instructions for my great-grandmother that said this: God will kill me today. And my great-grandmother laughed at him and said, what do you mean God's going to kill you? And he said, no, God will kill me today. He was a logger. He owned a business, falling trees and taking them out and selling them. Sure enough, that day, by the testimonies of the men who worked for him, my great-grandfather was standing in the field, and it was almost as if God covered his ears, and a tree fell on my great-grandfather and crushed him. At home was my grandfather, Green Perry Gray. That was his name. My grandfather then was raised in a drunkard's home, and my grandfather, for the first half of his life, lived a very wicked life. My grandfather had 6 children. The 3 older children, they were raised with a drunken daddy that they would have to go to the bar and drag out of the bar. My grandfather was not a very good man at all. Morally, he was not a good man. Drink, smoke, it was just not a good situation. God came down and saved my grandfather when the last 3 came along, which included my father. The youngest 3 of this family trio, of this family sextet here, was Sanford, Jerry, and then my father. So Glenn, Jerry, and Sanford. Well, when they were being raised in their teenage years with a godly daddy. That is why my dad got in church, and my dad fell in love with the Lord. Because of that, my father, my grandfather, my father, me, and I just was able to preach with my son last week at a camp, and now my son. Y'all, I have been influenced. And I'm telling you right now that you, my friend, carry around children in you, and you better make the decision to keep God in your life, or your children and your grandchildren will end up going to hell. It would bother me. Listen to this. It would bother me if I was at the great white throne judgment and God was sitting there, and the great white throne judgment is where God reads from the Lamb's book of life. And if you're not found written in the book of life, then you're cast into the lake of fire. Listen to me. If I was in the grandstand, I'm a gray. And if somebody lined up and all of a sudden the Lord went, what's your name? Gray? No, you're not found in the book of life. If that was my kin, that would bother me. But I only am required to have influence on 2 generations, because that's all the strength I have. That is my children and my grandchildren. I was done preaching our youth conference, and I was preaching second, and so the first preacher before me, I introduced him, and while I was introducing him, on the back right corner, I saw my daughter sitting back there with my wife, and then I saw my grandson, 4 years old. I saw his head pop up, and I thought, I know where I'm going. Y'all, I ran out after I introduced him, ran off the platform, ran around the hallway, came in the back door, sat down. Blake got up in Grandbob's lap, and I'm sitting there with my grandson on my lap, and we got the Bible open, and we're watching the preacher. I wear an ear mic. I've been wearing it now for like 12 years, and it gets my hands free, and I just feel very comfortable with it. And he looked up at me, and he said, I want a mic like that, Grandbob. And I think, oh, you do? Why? He said, so I can baptize. And I was like, so you can baptize? I keep my coat buttons a lot of times while I preach. And the other day, he was on the front row, and while I'm preaching, and he was doing this and looking at me and doing this and looking at me. And so he decided he would button both buttons. And so in the middle of preaching, I buttoned both buttons. And then halfway through the preaching, I unbutton one button, he unbuttoned one button. He has this thing to where he'll look at me while I'm preaching, he'll put his binoculars. And so you know what you do? You're a grandbop. This is what you have to do. I'm telling you, you make an idiot of yourself. And so God's good. God will love you. God will judge you too. And I just put my binoculars back ahead of him. He'll just laugh and give me thumbs up. You say, oh, that's just so stupid. No, it's not. Because I have a responsibility to keep God in that young man's life. And when he looks at his grandfather, he needs to know this. God was important in his life. Why? Because I don't want to be part of a generation that knew not the Lord. You listen to me. It may not mean anything to you today, but there needs to be a decision made tonight that you as a 14-year-old and 15-year-old and 16-year-old and 13-year-old make a decision that I'm keeping God alive in my life. That's the best inheritance you can give to your children, and your children's children is for their grandfather and their father, for their grandmother and their mother. If right now what I'm saying, I'm going to use a political term here, has resonated with you. That's a big grown-up talk that means this. If you catch what I'm trying to say, and there is a desire on the inside of you that your children yet to be born and your grandchildren yet to be born, that right now it's important to you that they know God, would you stand to your feet? If not, I'm not mad. But if it's important to you, teenager, that you're willing to say, no, that's important to me. All right, sit down. Let me give you 4 things you do then. Get your pen out, write them down. 4 things you do, and then we're done. It is 10 minutes, only been preaching for 20 minutes. We're doing good. 10 minutes to 9. Here we go, 4 things. Are you ready? Write it down. 1, do not leave the enemy in your generation. Now, remember this. After Joshua died, let's go on a journey here. After Joshua died, the people who lived after Joshua died, and then there arose a generation that knew not the Lord. You say, Brother Bob, how do I do this? How do I get this done? It's very simple. Don't leave the enemy in your generation. We're going to go all the way back to the beginning of Judges. So I want you to take your Bible and go all the way back to the beginning of Judges chapter 9. This is going to be incredible. Judges chapter 9. Only if you're interested. If you're not interested, get on your phone, play a game, play tic-tac-toe, play hangman with yourself, and doesn't matter. But if you're interested, only if you're interested, go to Judges chapter 9. Now, Moses hands off to Joshua. We now are coming into the beginning part of this. By the way, this is kind of crazy here, but even the heathen heard about their God. This is crazy to me, Brother Johnson, that Rahab the harlot was inside the walls of Jericho, and when the spies showed up to the city, guess what the spies said? We've heard about your God. We have heard about your God. Isn't it sad that the heathens knew about the God of Israel, but yet there arose a generation that didn't even know God, that named the name of Israel? Look at Judges chapter 9. Joshua chapter 9. Look at it. And when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard that Joshua had heard what Joshua had done unto what? Jericho and what? Ai. Can I just stop and say this? If you're not going to keep God in your generation, look right up here before we get started. Would you do us a favor? Don't get married. Don't have children. You say, are you kidding? No. Die in a selfish state, loving on the devil, but don't bring people into this world that bear your last name and do that to them. There's your commercial break. Joshua chapter 9. They did work wildly, and went and made as if they had been ambassadors. So they lie. They took old sacks upon their asses and wine bottles, old and rent and bound up, and old shoes and cloud upon their feet, and old garments upon them, and all the bread of their provisions was dry and moldy. They're lying to Joshua. Look at this. And when they went to Joshua unto the camp at Gilgal and said unto him, the men of Israel, we be come from a far country. Liar. Now therefore make ye a league with us. Don't do it, Joshua. And these bottles of wine which we filled were new. Liar. Because they were be rent. Liar. These are garments, and our shoes are become old by reason of the very long journey. Liar. And the men took of their victuals and asked not counsel at the mouth of the Lord. Look at verse number 15. Let's read the very first phrase out together. Are you ready? Verse 15 to the comma. Here we go. Ready? And Joshua made peace with them. How does a generation that had the Lord Jehovah as their God not even know about God nor his works? I'm going to tell you why. Because Joshua made peace with the enemy. Do you have any idea what that means? Can I use you? Come here, come here. Watch this. Joshua made peace with somebody that God said, kill them. Do not leave them alive. How was he dumb enough to make peace with them? Look at the verse above. He asked not counsel of the Lord. Okay, I know this isn't Knott's Berry Farm, the cranberry people. I don't know where you're going. But I will tell you this. This will give you more thrills than any roller coaster will give you generations from right now when you're an old man. Because either you're going to bail your kids out of jail, and either you're going to be heartbroken that your grandchildren are tatted up, ratted up, drugged up, and you're going to grieve yourself to death. Or you're going to be an old man someday sitting in a recliner, and they're going to come sing to you. It all depends. What are you making peace with? What have you convinced yourself to make peace with? You see, the Gibeonites did not affect Joshua, but Joshua, with this one move, set a precedence for the rest of the children. You have to think in terms like this. Step out and look down the highway. Children are going to be born. Grandchildren are going to be born. And they're going to carry your last name. They are going to call you dad. They are going to call you mom. And whatever right now you have made peace with, you've made peace with ungodly music. You've made peace with a boyfriend or girlfriend that you're fooling around with. You have justified it. You have made peace with things in your life. And the more you make peace, and that's why you 20-something-year-olds and you 30-something-year-olds that are married with young children, you better not make peace with the Gibeonites in your life, and you better kick them things out of your life because you're setting your children and grandchildren up to go to hell. What are you making peace with? What have you adopted and accepted? We got to move on. Because of this, the influence. And it is kind of scary, Brother Johnson, when you pulled the word influence out, because it's like the main point of number 2. Because the influence Joshua had with his carried over into these tribes that inherited the land. Go to Judges chapter 1 and verse number 19. Judges chapter 1 and verse number 19. Their leader, Joshua, is an old man now at Judges. We started out the sermon in Judges chapter 2. He now dies at 110 years old. But Joshua, when he was a young man, a young leader, set the precedence for the entire family. You see, everybody knew, Joshua's our leader, Joshua's our daddy, Joshua's our granddaddy, but Joshua had a little fifth of whiskey on the side called the Gibeonites. Joshua was our daddy, Joshua's our granddaddy, but Joshua had a little bit of pornography of Gibeonites on the side. Joshua made peace, and everybody knew that Daddy Josh and Granddaddy Josh got suckered by the Gibeonites. And look what well-respected Joshua was. Can I have 12 guys right there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, red tie, 12 in the yellow shirt. Come on up here. Come on. Just stand shoulder to shoulder across. I want you to look at the Bible real quick. Judges chapter 1, verse 9. And the Lord was with Judah, and he drave out the inhabitants of the mountain. Look at this. But could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley. Look at your Bible. Go to verse 21. Benjamin couldn't drive out the Jebusites. Verse 27. Manasseh couldn't drive out the Beth-Shean. Verse 29. Ephraim couldn't drive out the Canaanites. Verse 30. Zebulun couldn't drive out the Kitron. Verse number 31. Asher couldn't drive out a Koah. You keep going through the entire chapter, and what you're going to find out is every tribe left an enemy in their life. Now, I know it's warm, and I know that the eyelids are getting heavy, but I'm going to tell you right now, you better take care of the Gibeonites in your life, or your influence on the rest of the people of your family to come is like a domino effect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Each of you go get somebody and have them come stand with you. Go ahead. Not you. You're a Gibeonite. You're mine. You're a dumb Gibeonite, but you're mine. So here I am. Look at what's happening. Oh, because I didn't walk with the Lord. Bring him back up here. I made peace. Look, you see what's happening? And Joshua never realized the influence. Face each other. Like you brought them up, face them. There you go, face. No, stand in a single, bunch of dumb children of Israel. The original 12 guys, stand like you were, take the person you got, let them stand right in front of you. Dumb. Hey, look at me. Listen to this. And you wonder why a family name has generations of perverts, generations of alcoholics, generation of wife beaters, generations of criminals, generations. There's no demon in a generation that passed to the next generation. That's a bunch of junk. You know what it is? It's influence. And I'm asking you to be mature tonight. I'm asking you that when your children and your grandchildren ask you, why do you serve the Lord? Why do you love the Lord? That you'll be able to point back and say, when I was 16 years old, I made a commitment to you before you were ever born. That I would always keep God in my life. It'll make you weird. It'll make you different. You'll have to sit alone. You'll have to eat alone. But in God's dear name, the best thing you can ever leave your children is not money. It is not houses. It is not land. It is your God. It is your Bible. It is church every Sunday. It is church every Sunday night. It is ladies wearing dresses. It is guys cutting their hair. It is going to the altar a virgin. It is going to the altar chaste and pure. But whatever you make peace with, you listen to me, your children and grandchildren will make peace with. But it will be something else. You guys can have a seat. Third thing, not only the influence that you'll have, you say, how do I make sure that my children and my grandchildren do not become that generation that doesn't know the Lord? You know how you get it done? First of all, we talked about get rid of the enemy in your generation. Number 2, realize the power of your influence. You have influence. Number 3, get rid of the stinking excuses why you can't live for the Lord. Go back to Judges chapter 1, verse number 19. Look at this. Look at it. Judges chapter 1, verse 19. And the Lord was with Judah, and he drave out the inhabitants of the mountain, but could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley. Are you with me? We're at a semicolon, only been preaching for 31 minutes. We're fine. If this was a video game in the middle of the desert, you'd be playing it. Just a second. Amen. Come on, let's just get down to brass tacks. If we were going to the Knott's Berry Farm and it was 130 degrees, you'd still get on that ride. You wouldn't stand in line. Look what it says there. They could not drive out the valley, inhabitants of the valley, comma. What is that next word? Say it with me out loud. What is it? Because they had chariots of iron. Y'all, look at me and listen to me. Did they soon forget that God destroyed an entire army called Pharaoh's army with their chariots? Oh, but they said, oh, well, we can't do this because those are chariots of iron. Can I just be honest with you? You're spoiled brats. We have, to our detriment, we have spoiled you too much. How does a teenager own a $600 iPhone? Can we say that again? Because I know that was very controversial. And I just want to make sure the people on the porch heard me, because there's a whole lot more of y'all out there. How in God's dear name does a teenager own a $600 iPhone and they don't have a job? Let me tell you how you own it, Jack and Jill that went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Because your mama bought it for you. Your mama is paying that $25 a month next plan. And then you have the audacity to get upset when your dad is cut short. I'd walk out too. You have the audacity to get when your dad gets cut short. You're spoiled. If mama didn't take you to church, would you walk? Well, I can't go to church because I don't have a ride. Yeah, you do. It's called that. That. You see that right there? Woo-hoo. Well, if I do that, I'll ruin my basketball shoes and I won't be able to sit on the bench and look good. When are we going to throw the excuses out? You say, how do I keep God? Throw them out. Stop giving these excuses. This is crazy. Come here. Stand right up there. Did you buy that suit coat? Take it off. Did you buy that tie? Take it off. Did you buy that watch? Take it off. Did you buy your belt? Take it off. That look on his face right now is total fear. Did you buy those shoes? Take them off. Just kick them off. Kick them off like you're at home. Did you buy those socks? Take them off. Did you buy those pants? Hey, look at me. You don't have to pay rent. You don't have to pay a mortgage. You don't have to buy your own food. You don't have to buy your own clothes. You don't have to worry about transportation. You don't have to worry about anything. You are living the American dream at your age. Why would you not serve the Lord Jesus Christ? There are real burdens by real adults in this room that you don't even fathom. But I will tell you this. How come the adults are happier than you are? Either you're going to make up your mind for your children and your grandchildren that they will have a dad and they will have a granddad. They'll have a mama and they'll have a grandmother that is all about God. You feel awkward? Okay, pick up your stuff and go have a seat. Would you get dressed? Good night, son. You're in the house of God. I want to end you with this thought, and this ought to scare you. Go to Judges chapter 2 in verse number 10. The fourth thought I want to give you is this. Your enemy today will be your children's religion tomorrow. Listen to me. Your enemy today will be your children's religion tomorrow. Look what the scripture says, Judges chapter 2, verse 10. And also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers. Are you there? Say Ungawa. Okay, good. That means your neighbor's ugly. Generation gathered unto their fathers, and there arose another generation after them which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. Look at verse 11. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served, what's the god, please? Balaam. Verse number 12, and they forsook the Lord their God, which brought them up. Into verse 12, they bowed themselves. Verse 13, they served Baal and who? Ashtaroth. Now, young people, listen very closely. God is such a wise God that he only puts names in the Bible, but he never describes these gods. And there is a reason why he does not describe these gods. These gods are very wicked gods. But this is what their children were serving. I'm going to go back and then I'm done. Remember, I told you my great-grandfather ran from the Lord. God killed him. Remember, I told you my grandfather lived a hellish lifestyle. And he did not get saved and get in church until the last 3 kids. My grandmother passed away, and so as everybody does, everybody shows up for the funeral. I'm standing and I know everybody there. There's a gentleman standing next to me, and I don't recognize him. I assumed that he was married to a cousin, a second cousin. We're all Grays, so we all look alike. We all act alike. And he looked like the family, but I thought, okay, one of my cousins got somebody who looked like all the rest of us and married him. So I'm standing there, and I look at him, and I simply say, thanks for coming to my grandmother's funeral. I don't know where you fit in the scheme of all these crazy people. And he goes, well, most of them I know, but I don't know you. And I said, my grandmother passed away. I'm married. I've got children. I'm grown. I'm on my own. He's 10 years older than I am. He was a cousin. First cousin. I said, how is it that we have never met? And he goes, I don't know. Make a long story short, because of my great-grandfather and because of the way my grandfather lived, he raised his first 2 sons with no God. He lives in a distant state, and I preach in that state. And I told him, I said, hey, Doc, I said, I preach in the area where you live, and when I'm there next time, let me come get you. Just let's go catch up. Let's do the whole family tree thing and figure out where we all fit. Who are we? What are we? And I said, in fact, while I'm preaching, why don't you let me swing by, pick you up, come to the church service with me. Listen to what somebody who bore the last name of Gray said to me. I don't go to church. Grays go to church. Y'all look at me. Grays do church. Grays live at the church. When you want a rugrat to go vacuum the stinking carpets at church, you call it Gray. That's what we do. What do you mean? You don't go to church. Listen to this. He said, I am what you would call an atheist. How does an atheist bear the last name of Gray? I'm going to tell you why. Because my great-grandfather decided he would kick God out of his life. And my grandfather was raised with 0 God. And by the time he found God, it was too late for my cousin. you have no right to choose for your children. You have no right to predetermine for your children the way they're going to live. And heaven and hell, you don't have that right. You keep God in your generation. Get the Gibeonites out of your life. And if your children, your grandchildren are going to go to the devil, make them step over a godly mom and dad. And make the grandchildren step over a godly grandpa and grandma. And now's when you decide that. Heads bowed, eyes closed. What about it? What about it? Teenager, tonight could be the night that you could begin an inheritance, a heritage. If your mom and dad are in church, don't break the heritage. Don't break the chain. But if you're sitting here tonight and say, I don't even have a godly heritage. My mom and my dad don't even care about the things of God. Then start a godly heritage. And give to your children and your grandchildren, not perfection because we cannot be perfect, but give them God. Give it to them. Take the Bible that you have right now, and if you're going to make that decision, I want you to come and bring your Bible. Bring a pen, bring your Bible, and at this altar, right on the inside of that Bible, today's the day I've decided to keep God in my life for my children and my grandchildren, and then pass it down to your children. We give tokens all the time. A ring is a token. We pass down jewelry to our children. We pass down hundreds of things to our children. How about they get grandma's Bible? How about they get grandpa's Bible? And the Bible you have right now, teenager, why don't you make up your mind that you are going to make that decision that your children and your grandchildren, God's only giving you 2 generations to be responsible for. Don't let somebody that carries your last name not know God. As the pianist plays.